It's a privilege to be back with the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs today to discuss the Truth and Healing Commission on Indian Boarding Schools Policy Act. I was so glad to have the opportunity to join your legislative history on this bill last fall, and I appreciate the invitation to join you again today. This bill has bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate. It has been an honor to work with both Democrats and Republicans together on such an important issue. I'd like to start by thanking Chairman Schatz and Vice Chair Murkowski for your strong leadership and your commitment on this issue, as well as the many co-sponsors of this bill. I'd also like to thank Deborah Parker and the National Native American Boarding School Healing Commission for their invaluable expertise and their work over the past several years. This bill would establish a Truth and Healing Commission to formally investigate the Indian boarding school policies, horrifying and unacceptable practices intended to strip Native children of their indigenous identities, beliefs, and language. I first introduced this legislation in 2020 with my dear friend Deb Haaland when she was serving in Congress. She told me how important this was to her on a personal level, and we agreed that it is critical from a national policy perspective as well. Since that time, Secretary Haaland has launched the Federal Indian Boarding School Initiative at the Department of Interior, and I've reintroduced the bill twice to carry on that work. Thanks as well go to Representative Sharice Davids and Tom Cole, co-chairs of the Congressional Native American Caucus, for carrying the baton in the House. As many of you know, the federal government's Indian boarding school policies caused unimaginable suffering and trauma that linger on in tribal communities today. And it is long overdue that the federal government fully reckon with this history and its legacy. For at least 150 years, up through 1969, these policies forcibly removed children, some as young as 3 years old, from their homes and families and sent them to boarding schools. The Department of Interior's initial report has already identified more than 400 of these boarding schools across 37 states or then territories. At the schools, Native children were subjected to harrowing human rights violations, including spiritual, physical, psychological, and sexual abuse, neglect, and trauma. Many never returned to their families, and inaccurate, scattered, or missing school records still make it difficult for families to locate their loved ones. As of last year, the Department of Interior had already identified more than 50 burial sites at these schools, many of them unmarked, and that number is expected to increase. It is no question that this work will be painful, but it is important and long overdue. The Department of Interior's report was the first time that the federal government acknowledged its role in these policies. It is past time that the voices of survivors and other community members are fully heard. In fact, the final conclusion of the Department of Interior's initial report stated that the federal government has yet to provide this type of forum for survivors, descendants, and their families to voluntarily share their stories. This bill would provide the Commission with several years to investigate the policies and learn from survivors and their descendants by providing this forum, holding culturally respectful and meaningful hearings. And throughout this process, the Commission would also develop recommendations for the federal government to acknowledge and heal trauma caused by these policies. Revelations in Canada and across the United States have already shown that this work will inevitably result in a resurgence of trauma. The revelations uncovered by this commission, too, will undoubtedly underscore the need for resources to begin healing. To all those who have shared their experiences and feedback to improve and strengthen this legislation, thank you. Your voices are vital and your work has been immeasurable. I look forward to continuing to work with the committee as this legislation advances to finally begin the process of healing for Native communities that have been living with the effects of this disgraceful legacy of the Indian boarding school policies for far too long. Thank you again to Chairman Schatz and to Vice Chair Murkowski for your deep commitment to this issue. Thank you.